Bry's Comics.
I am so incredibly excited to announce my latest exclusive project from none other than legendary R.L. Stine for Boom Studios with cover artist Abigail Harding. Run that 15-second trailer. You're gonna have to forgive me, guys. I'm a little bit excited, still pinching myself that I get to work with legends in the industry for a living. Let's see what R.L. Stine himself had to say about his new series, Stuff of Nightmares #1. At last, I'm free to let my most horrific fantasies out. Hey kids, stay away from Stuff of Nightmares, said R.L. Stine in Boom's press release. It's my first horror comic book work for grown-ups. Ghastly, gory, and I hope good stomach churning fun. So it's a 4-issue limited series, reanimated reimagining of the monster tales that we all know and love. I was watching Netflix last night and it was a reimagining of a vampire movie. It was called Day Shift, and I really liked the movie, and I thought, man, it doesn't matter how many vampire movies that they do, as long as it's a good reimagining, it can be done well, and I'm all in. And I don't think we should expect anything less from the legendary R.L. Stine to reimagine these classic horror stories, starting with Frankenstein in issue #1. So Boom pulled out all the stops for the regular covers for this and the incentive covers. There's a cover A, there's a glow-in-the-dark version of cover A, there's a cover B, and a glow-in-the-dark version of cover B. There's another regular cover that originally was a 1 in 10. Now you have access to that as a regular cover. A 1 in 25, a 1 in 50 Jenny Friesen like black color bleed thing going on. Truly striking Jenny Friesen cover. A 1 in 100 Bjorn Barons cover, and then a 1 in 150, which is a virgin version of the 1 in 100 Bjorn Barons, but it's signed by R.L. Stine and it's a virgin version. It's coming directly from the distributor with a certificate so that it could be submitted to CGC and still get the gold label. I'm handling all of that for you, so it's an additional fee for grading, an additional fee for shipping back and forth and all that. That's all included in the price that you see on the website for the signed R.L. Stine version. I'm guaranteeing 9.6 or better. In the event it comes back less than a 9.6, I'll offer it to you at a discounted price or a full refund. It's the best I can do. Hopeful for all 9.8s on these. Boom understands that these high incentive ratios are highly collectible and the value is predicated entirely on their condition. So they handle them with great care. They're being shipped with great care. And they also always have really good high quality cover stock paper. So hopeful for all 9.8s on that. And yeah, pre-sales are live now over at bryscomics.com. So when this opportunity came up and I saw that it was R.L. Stine's first horror comic book series from Boom Studios, who has a first look deal with Netflix. R.L. Stine has all of this history with, successful, pretty much everything he touches is successful. These awesome movies and TV shows. It's like, yes, of course, this is a no-brainer. I am all in. Sign me up for this. And then on top of that, to get to work with Abigail Harding for this incredible piece of art and epic cover art by Abigail Harding. Go check out some of her other work. She's making big moves in the horror genre. Big fan of Abigail Harding. Thank you so much for jamming with me on this, Abigail. Truly, truly an honor to get to work with you. And thank you from the bottom of my heart to all of you who are supporting these projects. Vanish #1 sold out in like a day. It sold out like 98% in a day, and then there's like a handful of copies that just held on for a few days, but we are 100% sold out of that. This one is also limited to 400 copies, and we are past FOC for this title. So that just means that the orders are in, and that's what retailers are going to get. I haven't heard a ton of stuff about this series on social media, which is a good thing. And, so I wouldn't be surprised if this series went to a second print if it sold out at the distributor level, but none of that really matters. What matters right now is access to these incredible covers, incredible bundle deals over at bryscomics.com. And thank you once again from the bottom of my heart for supporting my business and these projects with these epic covers on epic stories from epic creators. Such awesome collectibles. So thank you once again. Also, check me out out this Friday over on Whatnot. We are doing $1 starts on over 50 slabs. There's a link down in the description to get $15 towards your first purchase. We're having a ton of fun over on Whatnot, going live 3 days a week at this point, and I hope to see you over there. So in this video, we are looking at specifically 3 modern grails for 3 modern characters, some of the biggest modern characters reimagined from tried and true characters in the Marvel Universe, and that's Spider-Gwen as Gwen Stacy, Miles Morales as Spider-Man, and Riri Williams as Ironheart. So the 3 biggest modern characters and some of the biggest price tags on these modern variants. But before we hop into the specifics of those 3 books, just a quick little market update, very brief, not a super in-depth, full market analysis, but just a brief thing of where I see we're at currently with the market. So I feel like we are still gradually going down. It seems like those big lurches down are over with, and now we are just gradually going down. And the big question is, where's the bottom? That's what nobody actually knows, but it feels like we are still gradually going down. If I had to guess, I would say that we would find that bottom and then probably trade sideways for a little bit and then gradually go back up like we have in the comic book industry for decades. It's like we're getting back to a sense of normalcy where there's not these giant spikes and these giant dips that we saw with the market boom of 2020, 2021. We are still going to see giant leaps and giant corrections when it comes to, spec books and MCU and TV and movie related stuff. That's been going on since the beginning of comic book trading as well. But in general, just those more gradual increases, and right now, I think still a gradual decrease. It's difficult to say where the bottom is going to be. In fact, nobody knows where the bottom is going to be. However, I think that in 6 months from now, we will have a much better understanding of, either we're past the bottom and on our way back up, or a better understanding that maybe the bottom is farther off than we thought. But I think that we still need some more time to really figure out where this thing is going to bottom out and where it's going to start, gradually going back up. I'm just glad that we're back to graduals, right? It's so stressful when everything is just so volatile. And that is actually the biggest word that I would use to describe the 3 books that we're going to talk about today is volatile. So let's dive into the numbers and take a closer look. So here we are on gpanalysis.com, and we're looking at Edge of Spider-Verse number 2, and in particular the variant edition here, which is the 1 in 25 Greg Land cover. And as you can see, the most recent sale was $6,100, down from a high this year of $13,000. That's over a 50% drop in price. And if we look at the sales data on this, it peaked for $13,000 in May, just 3 months ago, and then a steady decline since then. Also in May, on the same day, a drop in price to $11,371. And then in June, $7,360, and then in July, $6,100. And this isn't like an anomaly low number. I've seen other copies sell for around this amount as well. Here on Elite Comics, they had a copy for $6,500, and it appears, it says a week ago. I feel like it was longer than that, but apparently about a week ago. And as you can see here, somebody claimed it. And there was also a backup claim and a backup to the backup claim. And what's one thing that's interesting is, like this guy says, man, that's a deal. So at this price, $6,100, people, and I do think that that is the sentiment for a lot of people, is that is a good deal. But the question is it? Is it a good deal? And that's, strictly a matter of opinion. And I'm kind of on the fence at where I stand on that. Because one thing that you really have to consider about this price, so we have this precedence, right? Recent precedence for up over a $10,000 book. I mean, this wasn't an anomaly sale. Here's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 times it broke $10,000 in 2022, and one more time in 2021. So 6 times times it broke the $10,000 mark, but also here during the market boom of 2021, it was more around the $6,000 range, $4,500, $6,000, $6,000, $9,000. So the question is $6,100 a good deal? And it potentially could be. And I'd like to hear what your guys' thoughts are down in the comments below, because imagine for a moment that Spider-Gwen is cast in a live-action film with a super hot actress attached that just melts your heart, okay? And, I mean, inevitably that's going to happen. It's just a question of when. So what happens to the price of this book when that announcement comes and then eventually actually comes to the screen? What happens to the price of this book? Is $6,100 a good buy-in? I'm curious to know what you guys think. And one thing to consider about this book is when we look at the CGC census, for cover A, there's 3,000, almost 3,500 total copies of 9.8s for the cover A, but there's also 405 9.8s, 100 of which are signature series for the 1 in 25. And this does not line up with the ratios that should be there for a 1 in 25 ratio. So leave a note in the comments if you know what's going on with this. Is there some shenanigans afoot with this to make way more copies of a 1 in than there should be for a 1 in 25? Because 700 it is 700 total copies in 1 in 25 compared to 6,600 total cover A's is over a 1 in 10 ratio, and that just doesn't line up for a 1 in 25. If we look over here at the census for Ultimate Fallout 4, there's 804 total 1 in 25s, only 181 9.8s for Ultimate Fallout 4 for the 1 in 25. But if you look at cover A, there's over 14,000 total copies. So for Ultimate Fallout 4, there's 800 1 in 25s on the census compared to 14,000 cover A's. And then Spider-Gwen, Edge of Spider-Verse 2, has almost the same number of 1 in 25s, and there's only 6,000 compared to 14,000. So leave it in the comments if you know about that. And one thing to consider about this too, with the timing of the inevitable announcement for a live action for this, is the number of copies that are on the census. I mean, there's 408 405 total 9.8s of this thing. And if we look at how many copies actually came up for sale this year, only 8. So that leads me to believe that people are holding, and they're waiting and they're biding their time for that announcement. So consider that when you think about what's going to happen to the price of this book, is think about the fact that a lot of copies are going to come to market for those people that are inevitably holding for that announcement to bring them. So here we have Invincible Iron Man number 9, and we're looking at the variant edition. This is also known as the Horsemen of the Apocalypse edition, or the Turcotte variant. And this book is not doing so well, to put it lightly. The last sale was $19.89, and is down from a high of almost $6,000, which was the peak price for this at this time last year. This was right when we got several things happening here. We had, market boom conditions, and we also had a key collector announcement go out saying that Riri Williams was slated to appear in something like 20 appearances in the MCU, which was way more prevalent of a role than I think any of us thought that Riri was really going to have. And it was just the perfect storm that really spiked this book, and it sold for a peak of almost $6,000, and now it's down over 60% from that high for $19.89. As you can see, it's just been steadily trickling down since then. And an interesting thing about this is that we just got the first teaser of Riri in the trailer for Black Panther, and we are definitely going to see her in Black Panther, and I'm sure that there will be some awesome trailers featuring Riri in all her glory coming very soon, because the Black Panther movie is actually slated to release in November of this year. So some trailers are right around the corner, and as you guys probably know by this point, I mean, that could make or break the price of this book. If that trailer is is received well, it could cause a lot more excitement for this book. But if it's not received well, as we've seen in the past, it can absolutely damage the price of this book to the point where it goes down even further than it was before they were in the movie and in the trailers. We've seen several examples of that, and people have referred to it as like protecting the brand. And there's been conversations about DC pulling certain titles because they were afraid that it would damage the brand. And one thing to consider with this book for Invincible Iron Man 9 is that this book is not an incentive ratio. Okay, so for those that don't know, this is the Turcotte variant. There's 649 total copies, 171 9.8s. And the interesting thing about this is when this book spiked, I remember this time because I bought a 9.6 for $400 on eBay, cracked it, pressed it, and got a 9.8, and I sold it for $2,300. And I remember this time because then the Key Collector announcement came a week later, and the price just shot up to $5,000. So I remember looking at the census for this book, and at that time, there was 105 9.8s on the census. So just about a year ago, and we've added almost 70 copies to the census. Actually, just exactly 70 copies because there was 105 total copies. And so it's an interesting thing to consider. And I talked about this at that time. As I said, I mentioned that this isn't an incentive ratio. This was an order all you want variant with a qualifier. And so what that means is shops had to order at least 90% of their order for Invincible Iron Man number 7, for Invincible Iron Man number 9 to qualify for this variant, all right? And a lot of shops didn't do that. So it is definitely more rare than like a order all you want regular cover. This is an order all you want with a qualifier. A lot of shops just didn't bite. They didn't want 90% of the copies for number 9 as they did for number 7 because naturally, as a series goes on, readership goes down. And so that's naturally why shops order less and less copies as the series goes on. And it's also why Diamond and different comic distributors offer incentives as the series goes on to get people to order more copies. So this wasn't an incentive ratio. And if you look at the actual numbers here, 649 total copies of the Turcotte variant compared to 2,900 total copies of cover A. This is not even a 1 in 5 ratio. Right. So here's the caveat to that is this is still the money book for Riri. This Turcotte variant, the Horseman of the Apocalypse, is still the money book for Riri. There are no incentives for this. There are no exclusives for this. So the rarest first appearance of Riri Williams is this Turcotte variant. However, just keep in mind, it's not a 1 in 25. It's not, I think there was actually even a video that went out around the same time saying that it was a 1 in 25, and that maybe people were confused, which is what caused this price to shoot up to $5,000 like that, because it's not a 1 in 25. So something to keep in mind. And again, this is one of those books that, depending on how Riri is received, if she knocks it out of the park, if fans are crazy about her, leave a note in the comments. What do you think will happen to the price of this book in that scenario? And in the other scenario, what do you think will happen to the price of this book? What do you think will happen if a lot of fans and collectors and speculators feel like it's more Marvel woke BS? What do you think happens to the price of this book in that scenario? And so here we have Ultimate Fallout 4, and I couldn't do this video about Modern Grails and not talk about Ultimate Fallout 4, and this is more of a cautionary statement on my part, and just my personal opinion, and I could be wrong. In fact, I hope I'm wrong about this. I want this book to go even farther to the moon. I'm a huge fan of Miles Morales. I'm a huge fan of comic books. I'm a huge fan of the comic book market, and I would like to see this continue to go up and up and up in value. However, I think that this might be the next one to see a large correction. How big? Again, nobody knows, but the reason for that, the reason that I think that there's a correction coming for this book is simple supply and demand. As you can see, there's only been 2 copies that have sold on record. There's been several other copies that sold off record. One of them was actually on Whatnot that sold back when it was around a $30,000 book. But only 2 recorded sales for this book, both over $30,000. But here's the thing is I'm seeing them listed for less than that. So currently, here's one listed. Grails Comics has it on Instagram for $36,000. And somebody actually claimed it, as you can see here. Now, how much did they claim it for is unknown because it says claim below or DM best offer. So it's possible that they got it for, slightly less than this, or at the most they paid $36,000, which is already $4,000 or a 10% less than the most recent recorded sale. If we look at the census again for this, there's 181 total 9.8s, including the 22 signature series for this book, and only 2 recorded sales so far this year. Again, this is just a supply and demand thing. I think that people are biding their time. In fact, I know for a fact that, some people have multiple copies on this that are just waiting for the live action announcement before they post this book. And so my question to you guys is, what do you think will happen to the price of this book when we get that inevitable announcement that Miles Morales is cast in a live action film, and inevitably, when that announcement comes, a whole bunch of copies come to market. In my opinion, a whole bunch. We're comparing that to 2, right? So I'm not talking about like 100 copies. When there's only 2 recorded sales this year, a whole bunch is, I don't know, maybe 10. If 10 copies come to market at the same time, I think that would be devastating to the value of this book. I think if 10 copies come to the market at the same time, there's no way that it can sustain these types of prices. Just simple supply and demand. People have options. There's more copies available. So again, I hope I'm wrong, and just something to consider, if you're thinking about forking out a bunch of money to invest in these comics. Just all of this is some, useful information to consider before making such a large investment. Again, you guys, just one guy's opinion. Do your own research. Thank you as always for sticking with me to the end of the video. Don't forget to follow me on Whatnot. Link in the description for a $15 towards your first purchase. Comment, like, and subscribe to this video, and you're entered to win 2 free slabs this month, 2 Secret Wars 9.8 slabs, and if you sign up for the newsletter at bricecomics.com, you're also entered to win 2 separate Secret Wars slabs 9.8s this month, and you also get first access to new collections and exclusive drops and mystery boxes and all kinds of cool stuff at bricecomics.com. Thank you as always for sticking with me to the end of the video, and we'll catch you in the next one. Bye.
Bryce Comics.